I really hope that I get done what I think I'm gonna get done, but as we get into the load here, I have to check something really quickly because right when I hit record, I have to make sure I'm actually recording. But as we get into, yeah, Olive is 16 now. 2 years left of the game. Although, yeah, fighter reputation is fine. It's the sensitivity threshold that we need to hit. Sensitivity needs to be higher than faith and intelligence. But that shouldn't be a problem, because we can take poetry classes and increase sensitivity by a bunch. This is going to be about 2,400 gold out of pocket, but that should be perfectly fine. All things considered, I should go fight the bandits as well. I should be able to win, and they definitely should not be able to defeat Olive, unless one of them casts a magic spell and crits her 3 times in a row, or 3 times in the course of the battle. But other than that, we should be perfectly fine. And if we have the gold, yeah, we'll definitely get enough sensitivity by the end of the game. And if we don't get the ending we want, well, I guess we're gonna do another video then. So, funny enough, I think this video might be coming out on a day where I'm not coming out with another game, video-wise. But that's because this week was a bit funky. And yeah, I had to deal with what I had to deal. That being said, oh yeah, I should get rid of stress really quickly here. We can do that while probably going for a mermaid tier, but more importantly, yeah, it would be great to actually get rid of stress. That's what we're going to do. So, just making sure, I mean, we have a very high stress threshold, but if we're gonna do it, we might as well do it here. Although I will wait, I will not immediately, you know, count chickens before hatched, because no point doing a vacation if I don't know for sure whether or not we are going to do a thing. Also, this poetry class is gonna be very costly. Unless I have something to sell. Do I have anything to sell? Question mark. I have an ice shard, and a lot of jet black scales, which I mean I could sell. But I mean, for safety reasons I should, just to know I have enough. I also have this spirit ring that I'm holding on to for whatever reason, and that will help out with the thing as well. So I guess what we are gonna do is do two errantries, one in the western desert and one in the lake. And then we will study, and that way we'll have enough gold for at least one period of studying poetry for the moment. But we should just give the spirit ring over. We'll still get to benefit from it, and that'll be at least 50 sensitivity? I don't remember. I feel like it's 100. But either way, we might as well get sensitivity close to faith. That way, if need be, I can just, you know, course correct and load the game really quickly. Unless I'm going completely out of left field, and this is not how we're gonna get the ending at all. But after assuming we get the sensitivity is the threshold here as we run into this dragon, we can make sure our poetry is also above 600 to get the good ending, as I mentioned before. And there shouldn't need to be much else said about it. I'll stop talking about it, hopefully, for the rest of this run. And yeah, that would be nice, wouldn't it? I think does the dragon actually have different dialogue based on how old, well, relatively how long the game's been? Because that would make sense, right? That would be an interesting little, what are we trying to say? Not tidbit. Subtle change that often isn't done, I think even in the topic of Princess Maker 2, because you can keep visiting things and it's like you've met them for the first time. But that would be an interesting way to do it. And for better or worse, that would mean that someone cares a lot more about the dragon characters in this game, but whether you feel strongly for or against that, or you're perfectly fine with it, is a different story. For those who don't know about certain ending variations, and I'll just leave it at that. And really, it's only one, but hey, as we visit the Spirit of this Ring to give back the ring/egg. And that'll help out with sensitivity. That gives me some refinement, but I don't need it. And, I mean, we can just fight a lot of stuff, but there's not really anything. I mean, I guess we can sit around and fight dragons. I could also rush towards the end to get fighting reputation. However little it may be, it's still morale. Also, I should have thought about fighting the war god. I could be fighting these things to pick up gold here and there, but for the prospect of worth, unless one of these enemies drops something that is valuable to sell, I don't remember, so I'm not even going to take the risk because I don't remember. But yeah, I should go get the War God sword. I should defeat the War God here. There's no reason for me not to do that. It's not like it does anything bad for your daughter. I think it's almost all good, save for the fact that anytime you spend, you know, getting your daughter strong enough specifically to fight the War God is time you don't spend elsewhere. But that's more I don't believe that's a fair argument. So yeah, let's just walk to the end. 712 HP with 128 defense. There's no way the War God defeats the daughter through HP. Hello, dog. Hi, dog. You're barking outside. You are? Yeah, I know. I know. Really? You gotta talk to me right before the end here? Is something wrong, you silly dog? If you can hear it, there is a dog barking in the background through a window, but not much I can do about it right now, unless it's something serious, but it shouldn't be anything serious. I'm looking over right now. Yeah, it's nothing serious. The dog is just going, hey, there's someone in my spot. I've mentioned this before, but for those who never heard it, yeah, our dogs are picky about where they want to be. We could try to accommodate for the number of spots that they would like to be in, but that would, I think, not put the place that they're in a very good state, and I'll leave things at that. But the dogs are doing just fine. It was much scarier. Was it much scarier? Yeah, I think it's. They're several years old by now. So, and I've told you their breeds. One is an Australian Shepherd Border Collie hybrid, and the other two are Australian Shepherds, which by asking a search engine, they live at around, well, 10 years is when they're elder, but the 10 to 15 years, and however long after that, depends on their health. I'm sure, unfortunately for as sad as it is to say, their health and or body begins deteriorating at that time, because that's just, for whatever reason, dogs don't live as long as, certain types of other animals that live like 5 to 10 times longer. And when I say these things, I mean well, not really cats, but birds. Most other kinds of pets that people like to raise, aside from dogs and cats, live either very short lives or very long lives, for whatever reason. Even though, I mean, in general, I think people love dogs and cats as if we were to put a census out on humanity in general. I need to rest here, by the way, to decrease stress. And, more people want to be with dogs and cats than pretty much most other types of species. Yes, you can be passionate about other types of pets as well. Again, I can only think of birds because I've been around birds as pets before, but it's, I would far prefer, even though I wasn't, years ago, I was not really, I'll admit, I wasn't really privy, I wasn't really, how should I say it? I wasn't really willing to raise pets, and maybe that fits into the reason why I just are not. Oh, let me check something really quickly. OBS no. Okay, it's good. Maybe why I don't plan. At this current point in time, at least, because I don't know what the future entails. But not looking for really a significant other or family for myself. And I do have family members who are, who I know are planning to start families of their own. So at least I'm not an only child. But hey, that doesn't take away from the fact that yes, I do admit, I think in terms of humanity in general, there is usually a natural desire. Again, I can't speak for every human being. There might be some exceptions. I'm not going to include myself in them because I'm more an indecisive person in terms of getting out of my comfort zone, that I'll admit. Even though here I am streaming and making videos and just going out of my mind, but I think I'm turning into a more likable human being in general. It's just that, in general, humanity usually likes to, create offspring, multiply, and, get a family line going down that family tree. On top of the other, what are the other two facets? There are 3 facets. I forgot what the whole topic was about, but it's like, something like human beings, have 3, not functions, but they live for 3 reasons mainly, and I say usual for human beings, because again, there are exceptions. Whether it is biological or environmental. But yes, creating offspring, passing down knowledge and experience, and there's a 3rd one, I can't remember. If it's not just living, but I don't think it's that. I could search for it right now, but I'm busy fighting a lot of these fishmen and feta fish, so yeah. But as of me, I feel right now, maybe a few more years down the line, as I get hopefully not too old, but if I do regret the decision, I mean, I'm not usually someone who chooses to regret things really heavily. Obviously, I have my regrets. If I make a mistake outright, yes, I do regret things. I do feel any guilt from mistakes I've made in the past, usually as it pertains to things that I would have been passionate about and decided not to do, or opportunities that I've missed. I think that is one of the bigger parts of my life that I do regret. Doing things that would help not just me, but those around me. Getting into passion projects that I probably would have succeeded in, but for my own, that's why I really don't look kindly upon myself whenever I not just make mistakes, but when I fail to do something, because I know that I usually am aware of my own shortcomings. It's not often that I sit there and go, ah, man, it's because I don't often blame my surroundings or my circumstances or my luck, because I believe at least I feel I believe in myself to some extent to be a better human being. But again, I often, other than that though, I often don't make decisions that I regret, because a lot of the time, in my experience, from my observations and my perspective as me, a human being, as a dog barks in the background, I don't feel... Oh, I forgot what I was going to say. It sounds like I'm rambling on. I was going to say something, but I usually like to add in things that, you know... I like to still look at the other side. I try not to be narrow-minded. So at least I try. That's the big thing I'm trying to say here. But at the same time, it would probably do best for me to actually remember what I'm saying. Slow down at points, but... Hey, I've done what I do. We're going to continue rolling our saves here. That's something that I should have really done a lot more, but we're doing it now, so it's fine. That being said, I said I was going to fight a bandit. I never did, so our sensitivity should be more than good enough. So I think I'm just going to go fight bandits and stuff. Actually, I should go get the War God Sword first. That's kind of backwards, but it'll make sense, I swear. And we don't really need anything else. I think we could just work at the church. For giggles, but also for morality. So off I go. So if you've never seen the War God fight in Princess Maker 2 specifically, then I'm about to show you it. Because aside from anything weird happening, I should be able to fight the War God in this video. But I've also made, I think, at least 1 or 2 other videos, both in Refine and Regeneration. If you are someone who's watching who is not of the age of majority in your current area of residence, then really all you have is my Regeneration video, where I kind of went over fighting the War God, I think? Or is it a stream? I can't remember. I think it was just a stream. I was supposed to make another video, but I mean, the stream exists, so... But it would be a good idea to kind of just make a video specifically. Otherwise, this is going to be the one, because we have the stats to defeat the War God anyway. 110, 120, and all physical stats should be more than enough. I don't know why I'm fighting this ice ball, by the way. It should be more than enough. Also, I should have sold my mermaid tears, and then have gone to the ocean vacation to give them to the mermaid. But I'll do that next month, I guess. It doesn't matter. It doesn't have to be in the summer, so we can give it to her at any time. And if we go with more than 1 in our inventory, all we're doing is really tossing gold to the mermaid, who doesn't even have gold. Like, it's not like you get a bigger bonus for giving the mermaid more mermaid tears in 1 visit. I think. I'm pretty sure about that, though, from what I've looked into. So, as the War God arises from pretty much nothing, we will fight, and, you know, omoshiroi, fascinating, interesting, any one of those. But, yeah, we're pretty much, I mean, he has more morale, but unless he hits the daughter a few times for super damage like that, and his super version of super damage is 20 to 30, so we should be pretty good. Although I'm not sure if Olive will run if the battle takes too long and she just decides to run. I feel like that's happened before, but I think it's only when morale hits 0. Because this is not a formal fight in a tournament, it's an outside fight in an errantry, so the only time one of them is going to back down is when 1 drops. And I guess the morale is to make sure the War God doesn't quote-unquote run. I've never seen that happen, but if that happens, you essentially usually need to fight again. You must go no... Oh, we got Sin for fighting the War God. Oh, no. But let's ascend this staircase first. Let's ascend, I said. And I think if we equip the War God Sword... Why did we find a random grenade on this staircase, by the way? If we equip the War God Sword here, we should have it for the forest. Otherwise, heh. Venus. I heard that Venus is one of the only gods, if not the only god, with specific lines in Princess Maker 2, voiced anyway, and just dialogue in general, because otherwise the rest of the male and female patron gods have a generic female-male voice where Venus is, you know, very specific because, well, I mean, Venus is in the opening animation as well, so I guess that someone knows more than enough, but I don't know that for sure. I just based on what I heard and looked into. And now what I'm hearing, really, when I play a lot of Venus runs, I pretty much specifically do a lot of Venus runs as the stairs continue to disappear. They're supposed to be disappearing, but they kind of just cut away here. So you're kind of just standing there going, wait, did the game freeze? No, it was just the thing happening. Can you not? I just fought a war. The daughter just fought a war god. Why? Why? We'll equip the war god sword. I think it's still better than the Valkyrie sword. Because again, and any small differences you usually don't need. I think the Valkyrie sword actually has more numbers in it though. Has more stats number-wise, but in terms of important stats, it's listen, combat skill and attack, pretty good, I think. Did I just misread those stats? Either way, fighting the Word God and winning is a good thing. And these bandits are not gonna know what's gonna hit them, so oof. But anywho. So you might have noticed I've been also doing Volcano Princess streams alongside Regeneration. That's just going to be normal. I'm going to do at least one full Volcano Princess run, but if I don't do any more, well, we'll see what happens. Again, at least up to a month's worth of more raising simulators is definitely what I promise, or what is being proposed here. But really, we've gone nearly for like 2-3 weeks of raising. And, you know, not every day has been a raising simulator game, but you get the point. It's definitely been a primary focus on this channel for about a whole month, and I was sitting, just for some behind-the-scenes commentary, I was kind of sitting around going, I was putting all my games down in terms of what I was interested to play, but normally I'm looking for so I'm checking something with my other hand, by the way. That's why I'm using the mouse to navigate daughter, but yeah, usually I'd like to look at games that are coming out, you know, I am looking at the channel's growth and health as I make decisions here and there. They're not the ones that are probably going to be the healthiest, but I don't think there are bad decisions to make, if nothing else. And while, you know, some people, you might say, well, Jordan, Regeneration isn't the best pick. Anyway, it's a new game. I might as well try, and if nothing else, it's practice for when a game does come out that's popular, that's new, that I play. And at least I have experience, you know, exploring a new game. Which is, I think, an important skill, not just in video games in general, but being able to not just read the market, but get into the market of, let's say, in this case, business for a YouTube channel, and decide on what you do. Again, I could definitely stand to be a lot better in general, just there's no specifications because I need to get better at everything, but hey, do I want to visit Cat Shi by any chance, though? I guess I might as well. One shot, but we only got 4 gold for that. I didn't even open these chests yet. That's how little I've been to the forest this run, but hey. Will you drop a cat's eye for me? Well, let's see. Nope. So yeah, jumping on newer games when they come out, even if they don't result in your channel exploding from growth, or growing at all, I think is still a good experience to try out. That way you can kind of get a feel for, you know, what you can do within, you know, a day, a few days, a week, a month's time of when a game releases. If for no other reason than, you know, your own scheduling, your own timing yourself to make content in a timely manner. As I say the word time 3 times in 10 seconds, but you get the point. It's practice, if nothing else, I feel. Now, sometimes practice can go badly, but that's, you know, that's based on the person. I feel like the daughter has a lot more different graphics other than skinny, overweight, and so on. And obviously wearing different attires, but that's a whole other thing. Because I feel like she may have different, like, slight body changes as her own physical condition changes. But I don't know if that's just me. Might just be me. Anywho. Let's sell any extra mermaid tiers we have. You only need 1 to visit the mermaid, and visiting the mermaid with any more than that results in you losing all your mermaid tiers, so fun. It's not, but just to assume. Also, I'm trying to sell healing pills at home for no reason. So let's just do that here. Let's just do some item management. We can also sell the ice shards, but we'll have more than enough item slots remaining, so we can just leave all these stats. Items that are presenting stats here. Well, the grenade will be near useless. I don't know what that, if it scales off of a certain type of damage, but hey, I've already sold it, so the deed's been done. And now we can drink the ancient milk. One of the only, if not the only, I think there's maybe a few other consumables. Yeah, there is, because I'm thinking of a thing that the merchant sells, but obviously I never get it because there's not really a use case for it, so But as we take time off and visit a mermaid, actually, let's work first. so we can get our stress down at least, and guarantee 600 morality. But we are increasing faith with that, but we might as well just make absolutely sure that we can be over 600, and then that way when we reach the ending and I'm like, I have 600 morality, it's like, well, you have to have more than 600, and I'm like, ugh. Basically, greater and equals than, or less than, is a very, very common way that, at least that I've seen, coders, programmers, game devs, programmers in general, I said programmers twice, but you get the point. A lot of comparison mistakes have been made. I myself have made a bunch of them, because sometimes you're comparing numbers, which are usually easier to logic out in terms of, you know, making code, making a game, making anything really, software programs. But sometimes you are making comparisons of variable names, and that can all get mixed up, especially if there are technical issues that have nothing to do with your code, but actually just whatever software you are using. Whether it's a GUI, whether it's a game engine, or etc, etc. Or you're just working with a small little Python file, an object file, you're working with a database of things, and then you have to make some, so, you know, maybe you're making a sorting algorithm, maybe you are making a comparison to allow someone to do endings or things in a video game, maybe you are comparing things to sort out, you know, customers' information because you work at a company or a store. It could be a whole host of things, but oftentimes, hey, it's not a small number of mistakes that are made that have to do with comparing things. So, funny enough, while theoretically it should not be a hard job to compare numbers, hey, 100 is greater than 10, sometimes it's not, for whatever reason. That sounds funny to say, but I trust me. Trust me, bro. It really is that way sometimes. We'll guarantee sensitivity here. We can work somewhere, not like it really matters, but we can work at the farm. We have the stress, we have the power, and we're about to enter the combat festival or combat tournament again. The Harvest Festival, but we're gonna participate in the combat tournament in the Harvest Festival. And away we go. I need to take more poetry classes, by the way, anyway, so whoops. Now that I keep increasing my faith, at least my faith is not on 999, but that's something that can be solved with a quick visit to Luciphon, I think. And then eventually I should actually have fought the other bandits now, I don't know. I knew I was forgetting about something, it was that. As I should have gone for the other bandit. But we'll use up stress where we can. And away we go. So, some people might be asking, well, hey, Cube is saying Danna-sama, is he married to the father character? No, that's just... more generally, Danna-sama is a noun addressed to, I guess, formally to males, but there is some other meanings that surround it when you use it, that title, Danna-sama, but there are... I don't remember the exact definition, but essentially you are addressing someone it's a mix of formally and, hey, I consider you a very, very posh gentleman. Not really. That's not really the meaning. In fact, that's like half incorrect, but you kind of get the feel of the title. For me, remembering a lot of Japanese words at least, you know, coming up with the meanings or trying to interpret meanings, translate them, I go by a feel basis and not a strict, okay, I know the definition means this sentence. Hot always means something is very warm. No, I kind of usually like to go towards feeling. Also, Anita is nowhere to be found. But hey. Yeah, but as it relates to Japanese though, basically, while a word may not have different meanings, but yeah, like English does, several words may have a similar meaning. Yeah, that made sense, right? Have a similar meaning, but they have very different use cases. Like, you wouldn't call... I think the quickest thing I can think of is anata and anta. Anta is a very informal way to address someone, and in fact, you'd probably be in a very bad situation if you just called out to someone, a stranger, anta. But at the same time, anata is a little bit... Well, I mean, it's more formal than anta, that's for sure. It's leagues better. You're not going to get an odd look if you say anata to someone, especially if you don't happen to know. Usually, in my experience, in Japanese, people are more understanding when you make mistakes here and there, language-wise. But if people don't realize it to me, like in any, like just as human decency, if you make a mistake and people don't realize that you're new to the language, then people are gonna go, huh? You didn't mean that, right? But, or I don't know if they meant that. But again, as usually you won't get a weird look. You'll get a correction, but you won't get a weird look. Another common form, at least for anyone learning Japanese just outright, is the topic of the male versus the feminine way to address oneself. Whereas a lot of guys I knew that took Japanese with me at a very early point in my life used watashi to refer to oneself, where boku is more the, at least education-wise accepted way to address oneself as a male. And then obviously there are more harder ways to address oneself in a more confident manner, like ore-sama, but oftentimes you're not gonna hear ore-sama. That's a bit too much, but you will hear ore usually used among if you're among friends, you might be more willing to use that, or just drop the nouns entirely. That's another not tangent, but it's an offshoot of just using any addressing to ways of address. But when context is necessary, yes, males use boku, and then girls can use watashi, atashi in certain situations, but normally you hear, and in modern times you hear that. Obviously, in more fantasy-like settings or, works of art, whether they be novels or movies or shows, yeah, you hear a lot of different forms of ways for people to address themselves. And even as we relate it back to Princess Maker 2, there are definitely a lot of ways people refer to themselves. Hi, dog. Hi. I just see a dog's face poke out from the window when they want my attention. Because they're at, so the window next to the room I'm in, because there's a window in this room, is in a spot where dogs can see me. So yeah. But yes, as it relates to works of art, if you're planning to write anything in Japanese or do anything in Japanese in terms of, whether it be a book, light novel, or otherwise, and you're really learning, and even for new people, this will be just information, I guess, but yeah, you definitely need to be familiar with a lot of situations in where you might use a word, but it's not correct compared to another word that might be used. Like, hey, maybe you want a young person saying this in this way, maybe you want an old person to address someone this way. If they're addressing a friend, they might say this. If they're addressing an enemy, they might use this. Okay, what's the context? Why do they say it that way? Because if someone addresses, if a character in a novel suddenly says honore towards someone, then that gives off a very, your reader, assuming they know at least a little bit of Japanese, might go, why are they addressing the person in this way? And if it doesn't make sense, it's like, okay, if it doesn't make sense relative to what is happening, then someone might think, well, okay, they're just being really mean. Otherwise, if they're valid in the reason of hating someone, then they will more likely that, that's the expectation when you have a character addressing another character in a very, very mean way, in Japanese anyway. So being careful about the vocab you use is kind of important, because you can give people a wrong impression. Similar to English in that way, but English is I guess it depends. As someone who self-proclaimedly writes a lot of fan stuff, but also other stuff as well, I've definitely gotten a lot more than a few criticisms, and where it's like, well, Jordan, why did you narrate it in this way? I don't get why the character was like that. And I had to, I had to explain, and it is there, but I'm not the best person at using subtlety. I might use too much purple prose, but is it called purple prose? I'm trying to think of the exact definition, but you get the point. Obviously, I am not someone who's going to one-shot like 4,000 words, check it twice, and be like, yeah, I got it. That's not gonna be how I release things. I often like to sit on things. In my case, let's say I'm writing fan fiction I'm sitting on 3,000 to 8,000 words, which is actually quite a wide spectrum, but you get the point. I'm sitting on it for at least a day. Whenever I finish something, I'm not immediately ready to release it to the wild. So instead, I like to at least sit on it for a day, even if I think it's perfect. Chances are it's not, but just to be safe, I sit on it, and then I read through something again, and again, and again. And I think the most I've done is about nearly 100,000 words. It wasn't actually 100,000, but it's close enough. I want to say 87,000. I remember that specifically because I was trying to trim a lot of fat, basically. And I ended up churning out at least 5k words because I was like, wow, that makes no sense. Or some of it I saved for later. And if you're interested in what I write, usually I write things in a fantasy setting. Yes, I've touched isekai as well, but for the most part, I usually like to stick to fantasy. I don't like usually moving to isekai unless I'm specifically planned to write something that's isekai. And I've written a few things, but trust me, they're not very good. They're basically very, or not. It's not that they're very good, but they are very. How should I say? They weren't commercial projects. I'll tell you that much. So, it might be somewhere you might be able to read it. I think you can still read 2 of them for free somewhere because I have not. I've actually, I've been very irresponsible with not being able to remember how to get back into certain accounts and emails. Emails sometimes, but mostly accounts. And so I'm sitting there. So as I dox myself a little bit here, yeah, that's a thing. And again, it's not like the 80,000 words is going to actually identify me. That's just a number that I've used that means a lot. But I've definitely written more than 50,000 words in a piece of work. So I've tried to put my fill, but it's very amateurish. I'll tell you that much for sure. I also took writing classes as well because obviously I was interested in writing, and so in the past, I want to say about past 10 years, I think that those classes have paid off. Now there are some things you take away that you don't agree with, but at least you don't agree with them, and you don't particularly toss them away. If nothing else, I feel like it's hard to find a writer. I'm not going to say everyone, because that's not true, but most writers, especially those who've taken classes, have been in a situation where they read others' work for the sake of improving their own writing, if not just learning how to critique and or observe, analyze writing, and point out, things that they feel works, but really in an ideal setting, things that work for the work that they're reading. I've read many different genres, but again, I mainly stick with fantasy, but obviously I've read other genres because I've read other people's work just in kind of like a writer's workshop type setting. And for those who don't know anything about this process, writer's workshop, they can be focused on many different things. The ones I've usually been in revolve around, one, obviously reading works that have been reviewed or criticized, or works that are common known. We'll just throw something out there, Shakespeare, but that's really more like something you read probably for like English class or something. But you get the point. And then the other half of a lot of those classes was writing works ourselves, because how do you don't improve if you don't try writing yourself? You can, but oftentimes you probably want to write something yourself. That way you understand how to improve. Whether it is, in my experience, usually it's about making the story a bit more logical in the way that it presents itself. You can write a story about, I think one of the beauties of writing is that you can write about anything and have it immerse the reader. Whether the reader, has fun, hates it. Sometimes you want to invoke hate in a story for whatever reason. And sometimes you want to, most people often want to share a feeling of interest, excitement, entertainment for someone to read their story. But again, there are many different types of writing, at least fictional works. And in my case, yes, I've read a lot of different genres, whether that's short romance, slice of life romance, tragedy in the form of social human society, and communication between, say, I'm trying to think, like a husband and wife having a situation. Even when I'm writing against things that take place in modern times, which thankfully enough, a lot of my classes have allowed, teachers and professors in that regard, have allowed me to write whatever I want to write about, but I also haven't been the best student as well, I admit that as much, because there's been a few times where I just completely dropped the ball in terms of I'm going crazy, but those are learning experiences at least. And I was definitely one of the ones who was shy to read their own work, but I remember this because I think one of my teacher's pet peeves were people who kind of tried to introduce their work before they read it out themselves. And I remember this specifically because this teacher / professor pointed out, they're like, don't do that, one of my pet peeves is doing that. I mean, sure, that might sound a bit odd to some people, but I understand where it comes from, because there is some logic to it in that you don't want... there is merit both ways, really, but the way that the teacher described it, I feel, is that... Oh, I was supposed to also look for the bandit by here. I completely forgot. Anywho, how the teacher slash professor tried to present their logic was that they don't want it to color their expectations or thoughts about the work without hearing it. And so oftentimes I've been more... Not always. I do have intent. At this point, I usually add intent, but I normally add any comments that I have as the author of works at the end of a work, if anything. But in my mind, I think a good point of not trying to introduce yourself, or at least the... Definitely not the platitude. Platitude's like, I'm not really good at writing, so I apologize if this is not your ding. Don't say that. I agree. Don't say that in general. Because you know, that's kind of... I'm not going to say a cop, that was what the teacher used. I think that's specifically what they use as well. If I'm wrong, and that teacher ever listens to this part of this video of me playing Princess Maker 2 Regeneration, I apologize. But for the most part, I think they said it was cop-out, but I understand where it comes from, because you don't want to put down your value as... You don't want to put yourself down as a writer. I think most, if not almost every writer is valid in, you know, trying to come up with the work, and you should have some value in yourself. But that being said, you know, trying to introduce your work like, this is what I was trying to do with the work, save that for afterward, after people have commented, at least in the atmosphere of a writer's workshop. Now, this is not advice for you to take into your own writing classes if you are, you know, currently taking a writing class for whatever reason, or part of or are part of a writer's club or something. But just know that this was at least my experience, my telling of my experiences in and what I've taken away from it. I was about to sneeze. And a lot of what I've done before, a lot of what I've done recently was... I do often use these pieces of information that I've taken from these classes, but I also obviously still try to read things here and there as we don't find a single bandit. I do try to read other works on my own if I can, you know, if I can actually read them. Even if they're, you know, manga, manhwa, light novels and whatnot. Usually I'm into light novels. I don't really watch anime and manga anymore, but even if I do, there is still a part of me as a writer that kind of looks at a work, whether it's an anime, TV show, movie, and I go, how did they work with... We'll just be real simple with this. How did they work with the plot? How did they work with the characters? What are they doing differently, as in oftentimes today? What is in this adaptation that is not or changed from the original, and why is it that way? A lot of the times it's due to meta reasons, but sometimes it's due to a creator's own flair, for better or worse, and oftentimes, unfortunately, for the worse in the gaming sphere, but... there are reasons that things are done, and I find them interesting to analyze for myself. I guess I could use an example. I don't know. I oftentimes don't like using examples unless, you know, I'm really focused on something, but I like presenting more conceptual things. That way they can be applied to many different situations. And in my case, again, when I look at a character, okay, how is the character treated? How are they introduced? How do they set things up? Foreshadowing, Chekhov's gun if you want to look at tropes, if you want to do a bait and switch, red herrings in terms of mystery, so on and so forth. I do try to keep those in mind when I'm examining a work, and then I try to apply those, if possible, if I can even remember them, when I'm writing my own work. So, but oftentimes I'm in a flow of my own. Every now and then, as it turns out, a lot of my inspiration usually comes from seeing something, and I'm like, could I do that in this way? Or just sometimes even, could I do it better? I think that is part of my process of, you know, trying to not get a writing career up, but do my own writing thing and find monetary value from it, although I haven't really started on that, so that's why I keep saying self-proclaimed writer, because I have not really done things to put myself in a position to look at things from a business standpoint. But still, though, it doesn't hurt to at least sharpen up my writing skills, because if nothing else, I'm a game developer who is trying to make commercial games. I'm a game developer who is trying to make at least commercial games, so having a good writing ability, and whether that's, even if that's not directly just straight up writing, turns out writing skills help out when you're making a character, plot, setting, atmosphere of a scene, so on and so forth. And so you want to put yourself in that, I guess, artistic mindset, and it helps out when you're being a game developer, and heck, even when you're writing code. That way, when you're not, while code doesn't have characters and a plot line, you do want to think about the logic of your code, whether it is organized and whatnot, just like how you would organize, okay, I know this character, this, and character have these relationships. I know this, I know where I want to take the plot. I know I want to do this, in these chapters, and I want these chapters to kind of fill into an arc that fits what my narrative is trying to do, what my story is trying to do. In my case, what my games are trying to do. Does it make sense? Does it make? Can I properly turn this into video game form? Because if I try to have a character do a monologue, okay, how many text boxes do I have? Is this making the... And because I'm working with the video game directly, does this bore the player? Because a player, you know, wants to play a video game more than, you know, read text, as opposed to a reader who's probably going to be reading your text and more invested in a monologue that is a set of different text boxes. But sometimes you want your player audience to be more readers, and so if you're trying to market to readers, then yes, it makes sense to put your text box in a way and add a lot more exposition, so on and so forth. I'm just going off right now, but you kind of get it. I'm thinking a lot about the writing process of video games as well, which I think is one of my stronger points. It's definitely not making music and music design, but I can only do my best, and I can only do so much on my own. Which, while you might say, well, Jordan, why don't you work in a team? Unfortunate to admit, as those who have been with me, more than a few people have seen me before, you know that I'm more of the independent loader type. So, and if nothing else, I think I usually work better on my own as well. That's not to say I couldn't learn to work in a team. That's what FF14 rating has, you know, shown me. But, even though that's way out of left field. But you get the point. I often like to work by myself, so... That's not to say I don't have beta readers or testers for video games at times, but when you don't have those things, you gotta make do with what you got. So, okay, we're gonna do one more poetry class just to lock in the sensitivity increase, or the sensitivity being top. Our daughter might run away, but hey, so be it. Eh. What else would I want to do? What else did I plan to do? Don't I have mermaid tears? I feel like I do. Hi, Wendy. Desuyo. Hello, dog. I'm gonna sell 3 mermaid's tears. Yeah, needless to say, these sell for quite a lot. So, yeah. I know, you are uncomfortable, but your sibling is in that spot, so there's nothing I can do for you, because if I move them, they're gonna be the ones who are antsy, and that either way, you guys gotta learn to share. Interrupted by dog. I mean, I am still going through the game, but let's lower, so let's lower the sin stat with the price of 1.5 mermaid's tears. We also want to give a mermaid tier over to the mermaid. Don't I have one still? I guess I can check. Yokai arigato. Yokai arigato. But anywho. Hey, Salam Nasir. Salam Nasir? I don't know how to pronounce it. Anyway. Saramu Nasir. I'm just gonna stick with what I believe is the katakana, original katakana. Katakana? It has to be katakana, right? For those who don't know why I'm saying that word, katakana is mainly attributed to Japanese, but referring to usually a foreign word or a loan word, as is one of the phrases used. But sometimes katakana is used, and it is still loan word. Like I think consento is actually an outlet plug in English, but yeah, it might not sound like you're. Why not? Some people might be wondering, why isn't it not just like outletto pragu? Well. And I think there's actually another Japanese word for it, but consento is, I forgot where you extend it, but that's the word for outlet plug. That's one of the words, at least, for outlet plug. I was trying to do a thing. Oh, time off, sorry. Let's do that really quickly. And I should get visited by a mermaid, but otherwise, it's fine for now. We have more than enough gold to cruise through the rest of this run. What I'm curious about, really quickly, so the game's gonna freeze for 5 seconds about, yeah, I think we're just gonna, I went to a lot of errand trees, so maybe this video is just gonna be Olive at the age of 16. Otherwise, we move too long, and I don't want to give you an hour-long video. I know my own, usually, self-worth in the way that value per minute watched, and yeah, I don't want you sitting through a 90-minute, 2-hour episode that spans over only 2 years of the daughter's life, for pretty much because I'm doing errand trees right here. But oh, I didn't even fight the bandit. Why am I here then? I went into the forest, I picked up the chest, and I thought I beat Bernazard, but anywho. So I'm here for no reason, pretty much. Well, hey, I guess we can fix that this video. I can actually just rest here. I mean, it's not like I particularly need anything. Yeah, we're just gonna rest here then. Sadness. I didn't even fight Bernard yet. It's not Bernard, it's Bernazard, but you get the point. I haven't beat the first bandit. For some reason I thought I did. I did not. So instead, we will do that next month. So yeah, really there's no other reason for me to really be grinding errand trees. I really don't even need to be fighting these bandits, but we might as well fill it out as a formal formal video series of regeneration. We should do it. And we'll go to the ocean to visit Mermaid, as we get late game daughter CG and a mermaid visit. It's a mermaid, father. Why did I take that tone? Anywho. So again, hopefully our daughter doesn't run away, but we're gonna properly do the woodland errantry. And then just so we can do anything we want, really. But we'll go to the church just to increase morality a little bit, but then also just guarantee poetry. So off we go. But yeah, I need to grind this. I don't know why I went to the errantry and just completely forgot that I didn't even fight a bandit, because I was so passionate about what I was talking about. That's something I need to get better in, but I'd rather this than me be silent more of the time, even 30-40% of the time. Yeah, at some moments I should just take a breath. I do, but oftentimes dead air is often not good for a channel if you're trying to actively grow it. But, I mean, there are exceptions, like if you're very good at a video game and you need to focus, obviously, you can be as silent as you want. If you're placing first in all of your, like, say, if you're competing in a video game for whatever reason and you always top the charts, you're always first, then you can be as silent as you want. Heck, that can even be your character, but for the most part, if you're going in with commentary and whatnot, it would probably behoove you well to... Oh, I accidentally did this, by the way. I didn't mean to do this. I know, dog, I know! Can you not do this while I'm recording? You are a sad dog. No, you silly dog. I need to keep the daughter moving, so I'm going to keep moving. But hey. You silly dog. I really hope nothing bad has happened. But again, I can't see everything from where I'm at. But for the most part, I can see that things are okay. And if they aren't, well, you wouldn't be listening and or watching this video. So, listening to or watching this video. Anywho. But yeah, the topic of dead air is often... Dead air is normally not good, in my opinion, but obviously if you ramble on and you don't know what you're talking about, and you may or may not be interested... It depends on the viewer, really, but... If for whatever reason, you know, most people don't think of your commentary is interesting for whatever reason, then yeah, that's something you can improve. Thankfully, that's something you can improve on. What you can't improve on is making a bigger mistake, like accidentally nuking your YouTube channel, but... Hey, that you gotta follow the guidelines, whether you agree with them or not. But usually, I mean, they're made for a good reason. So obviously, everyone can make mistakes because, hey, guess what? Human beings made video games. They made streaming platforms. They made websites. So human beings cannot always. It's hard to find a perfect human being. Let's just say it that way. But as we fight this bandit here, let's fight. Again, I do have my nitpicks here and there on certain rules on streaming, as it relates to streaming platforms, but they're mostly founded in, hey, it's hard for me to do certain things, mainly as it pertains to hardware things, so my setups, again, are not the strongest, but I don't know why I am trying to find a bandit that I've defeated, but yeah, as it relates to streaming platforms, I'm usually at a better time. Unfortunately, I can only focus on one, so I decided to choose the one I'm on now. And yeah, we're here. On that note, another reason why I'm being vague when I mention things a lot of the time is to not get any robots angry, because I have gotten a channel warning due to robots. And whether it was valid or not, now that I know it can happen, I might as well not take the risk, right? Especially if the warning, or it's just a straight up strike. Hold on, let me cough. Ah! But yeah, even if it is a... Yeah, if it's a channel strike, then I don't get to put up videos and stream for a week, and that would not be good. Now, obviously, it does work some of the time, but oftentimes you also get false reports. And so what happens is, again, a channel gets struck and sadness happens. And for smaller channels like me, I'll say I'm small, then yeah, it's not great at all. So it's less likely you're gonna receive some support, but otherwise, everything is going hunky-dory. What do I want to do again? Nothing else, right? I mean, there's not really much I want to do, but if we're gonna just go the full thing, I mean, I guess lumberjack. We'll lumberjack here. Oh, why do I keep hitting? I just gravitate towards the church job because morality. But let's fight this second bandit if we can. I think the next bandit only procs when you get the award for fighting the preceding bandit. So it's not like I can go to forest, then the riverside, and then the mountains, and reliably RNG my way to fighting all 3 bandits. I think you need to get the reward, because I've tried it a few times, unless I've just been really unlucky, because oftentimes I'm testing Bernazard into Blood Rose Vanista, is that her name? I don't even remember because they're so wilded out there. Why are all your names so weird? But that's something I can also talk about. The naming of characters in whatever fiction exists. Oftentimes video games, let's just say it outright. But oftentimes it's also light novels or fan works or works made by just, people interested in writing in general. You don't need, well, at one turn, yes, not everyone should be named Mark, Bob, Catherine, so on and so forth. Although Catherine is a less used name, but you get the point. You shouldn't normally default to those, especially as it relates to English. But at the same time, you don't need to make a name like Joseph Heaven or Brafamaluda. You don't need to go crazy with your names. You can, and obviously a lot of times names are taken from, historical or religious names, just because, as it turns out, whether you believe in religion or the history of certain things, whether they're true or not, those names do sound kind of cool. So it makes sense why they're treated that way. Am I not going to see a thing of the? Oh, there is someone here. Hello, Blood Rose Vanista. No, you don't belong in this world. Hiya! Oh my goodness, 348 damage. Got bonked 2 times and proceeded to go down. But yes. And you can come up with wacky names, and you can just use names like Kevin and Aaron in a fantasy setting, but at the same time, I think normally I have a very specific way. Well, I'm not going to say this much because it's part of my thing, so I will say if you've ever seen me write something original, I oftentimes have a very specific way that I come up with names for characters, and we'll leave things at that. But oftentimes, yes, I am, even though I just said don't go out of control with the names, I'm more likely to go out of control. I would rather that than have, again, a Demon King named Paul or something. But obviously that's a bit extreme because, well, if you're working with non-human beings in a fantasy world, they might have different names if they're not humans. But again, that's when I came up with my own. That's usually when I come up with my own naming conventions. And sometimes I do take inspirations based off, actual naming conventions, or ones that have been established, especially in fantasy. Like, elf names have to be this way, they should probably be made this way, demon names should be named like this. Dwarven names often are used in this way when they're named in, such and such and such types of writing and whatnot, so I do try to follow some form of sense, but I don't still go, again, I don't have a dwarf named Earthrock and suddenly have a dwarf named Zachary. Like that's probably not going to happen, unless of course there's a history behind it. There's always exceptions. I think the beautiful part of writing is, you may have heard something along the lines of, there are no rules, but I think I would even go further and say, there are kind of rules to writing, but you want to know the rules to break the rules properly, you don't want to break the rules, but there is merit in knowing how to play with rules of writing and the tools that you have as a writer to make an interesting piece of whatever, whether it's a work, a character, a chapter, a moment in your novel or whatever. I think there are ways to play around with rules, but you do have to be conscious about it. You can't just say, you can't just have made a mistake that you weren't aware of making and say, oh yeah, I was aware of it, I purposely meant that. Now sometimes you can blunder into some inspiration or something, you can blunder into diamonds, but that's not usually the norm, and oftentimes it doesn't go well. So there's that. And what I was trying to say by starting all of this, after the name thing, is that, yeah, sometimes you will run into an elf named Oriana, because maybe she had lost, a human friend that was named Oriana, and so she's taken her name, or named a child after her that is named Oriana. And so you have elves that are all named in a certain way, and then you suddenly have a Pauline or a Beatrice as an elf name, and you're like, yeah, there's history behind it. Again, that's what I mean by you can play with the rules of what you know and what you've established, but you have to really, you have to be conscious of what you're doing. And sometimes it's, you know, some people might have criticism for it, but at least it's come from a place. You want there to be a place of logic where you come from, is what I'm trying to say. So, yes, this video is going to pretty much end when the daughter hits 17, or my daughter, because I am the player, and the player is the father character, and the father character is raising goddaughter. So, but yeah, I think this video has gone pretty much long enough. So when that happens, it'll happen. But yeah, in the topic of writing, knowing rules and then knowing to play, you know, playing with those rules is interesting. Again, I think I'll say this much: I've been really, and I think it's something I usually do too. So again, it's not like a lot of people are going to listen to this unless I somehow get famous for some reason, but there is a very specific character trait that I sometimes use for my characters, and that's when a character uses very formal language, like they don't use contractions, they don't say, y'all need to, you know, slow down, or you'll be sorry, or he'll be doing this. I make them say, you will do this, or he shall do this, he can do this, he will do that, do not do that instead of don't. But when they have a character taken where, you know, when they're speaking, you know, they're kind of more panicked, angry, sad, they will start speaking informally or with less contractions. That's kind of something I've given to a lot of the characters I've written before. So, but that's what I mean by, you know, playing with not just the English language, but, you know, using rules, using things like that to your advantage to make a, I believe, usually more interesting character, but sometimes it doesn't work out. Okay, I guess we are going to do the next errantry. And we're going to see what happens. I shouldn't need to do much else, but, you know, if we're going for points, I could just continue increasing stats here and there. So, you know what? Let us do some poetry again. Although, should we really be doing anything else? Like theology. No, wait, that's faith, so scratch that idea. Yeah, we'll fight all the bandits in this video, why not? We'll finish off this video by finishing off a bandit, and that's not saying, I mean, maybe we just knock the bandit out, we never know, but we're definitely doing a thing, so what do we want, what else do we want? Yeah, I'm just gonna work as a woodcutter, lumberjack, sorry. I think woodcutter is what it's called in Fine, that's why I'm mixing it up, but anyway, we'll fight this last bandit here. We'll get like 5 to 10 more minutes of me talking. And if anyone has any questions or wants to hear me talk about something in another video, feel free to ask questions, because, boy, all I have is my own experiences and thoughts, and it would be, you know, one of the 3 things of human beings, and wanting to pass down knowledge and experience. Now, it may not be correct, but at least they help. I think usually, even if you're wrong, there is merit in presenting an opinion and being wrong, because that way you get people's, usually at minimum, brain juices flowing. Because if you say something wrong and nobody corrects you for whatever reason, that's brain juices are not flowing. Neurons are not activating or firing, so on and so forth. But anywho. But yeah, on the topic of writing, I sometimes like writing characters that, you know, have certain verbal tics that they drop or just outright change when something happens. And I think that's kind of like a more general thing that happens at times for characters, like, you know, you have a character that goes from good to bad, or bad to good. Yeah, they're probably gonna, their personality or something about them is probably going to change. That's why they became good or bad in the first place. Or maybe something changed that made them become good or bad. A lot of different things. Can I get your pelt, by the way? These silver wolves do drop an item. And I think one of them was in the inventory for that Demon Lord ending video that I made, but we didn't get it, so off we go. Nice gold. Apparently picking up gold and items from the ground, that your daughter picking up items and gold from the ground, is based on your her sensitivity. But hey, by the way, aren't there raising simulators that specifically are about you raising a boy specifically and not just allowing you to choose a boy? Obviously there are raising sims or, you know, simulators where you can choose between being a boy or a girl or otherwise, but what I mean by that is specific, I mean it would probably be some kind of shoujo game, but hey, no, I don't want your evil money. I'm just going to smack you with this War God sword. I think it's 3 blades in one sword, or it's not like the blade is moving terribly fast right here, so I think the War God sword is just a set of what seems to be 3 blades on top. And then we get mithril armor, but obviously we're already wearing one, so money. On top, I think defeating the bandits also gives you money as well, but hey, it pays to have your daughter be able to fight. That way you can do some good in the world while getting gold. As a dog barks in the background. But yeah, we should be more than set, so next video should just be all about ending the run. And I don't even need to do so many errantries anymore. I might do one just to reset stress to 0, but otherwise, yeah, we should be good to go. Study poetry. artistry. Oh my goodness, I couldn't even say that right. Self-proclaimed writer, by the way. Refinement, intelligence, and sensitivity. Yeah, look at that. What kind of poem is that guy reading? Anywho, we'll do more sensitivity because hi. Ojo-sama. Apparently there was a little bit of, not tension, but, you know, thinking about whether or not Cube should call the daughter my lady. But that's what we get. Or my lady, yeah, my lady. Was it my lady and or my lady, or my lady and some other phrase? I can't remember. But as Horstheim man, he loses. He says something pretty oof about, you know, the daughter's gender, and you know, we move on. The chauvinist swine, and that's a Ryuga Gotoku / Yakuza reference game. Well, look at that one-eye lumberjack boss. Did he lose an eye, or is he just like that? Anywho, I can't believe Castillo was and then 3,500 gold or 3,500 gold. I just do what I do. But yeah, that should be the end of this video, so we'll stick to the end screen now as we make another save. I haven't actually saved often, so good thing nothing happened. But yeah, without further ado, you know, if you want to support me, subscribing, commenting, and liking the video, all that sweet jazz, and I will be very, very thankful for you to do that. But I'm also just thankful for anyone watching, either, you know, when this video comes out or in the future, and I will see you when I see you. If you have any suggestions, though, feel free to throw me them as well. But without further ado, thank you for watching, and I'll see you later. Bye!